Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the annual meeting of the White Sands Residents Association. I can state that between those in the room and those on Zoom, we definitely have a quorum. So that's good. For the record, the minutes of the annual meeting of January 18th, 2024 were read and approved by Estelle Ebert, Ann Holt, and Lynn Schmidt. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. Shelley wanted to say something. Is that mine?
Probably. You're probably all ringing because I'm calling you. I just put out a message on one call. There's a small fire nearby. It's on Gilman Drive. It's about 1 acre. Maybe you smelled smoke as you were coming into this meeting. I've already been in touch with the fire department. They're just asking that we stay put, shelter in place. They said White Sands will be our priority if it needs to be evacuated. But we want you to just be prepared, be ready. Our messaging has always been pack a go bag should the time come. Again, no need to panic right now, but there is a small fire nearby on Gilman. The winds are 8 miles an hour. Anita and I were just looking at the wind pattern for the rest of the day. It may get up to 10 miles an hour, so not too significant. But I do want you all to be aware and to be alert to the fact that there is a small fire nearby. Any questions for me before I pass it over to Anita? And I thank you for letting me hijack your meeting. Thank you.
Sorry, Shelley. Where was I? Okay, to read the minutes for today's meeting, I've appointed 3 residents, Mary Hegler, Catherine Mills, and Barbara Weiler. For the record, we need to report the results of the election that ended on Tuesday, January 7th. I have asked our council and nominating committee members to be here today in person. So when I call your name, I would ask you to come forward. But you'll also be on the screen, so those who are on Zoom will be able to see you on your picture. So elected to serve 2-year terms to the council. Were Michelle Berry, who's returning, Martin Dalgleish, who's new, Eduardo Feller, returning. I'm going to try not to drop my papers like I did last time, and Mike Foley, who's returning. And they join continuing council members Ann Culinary, Chris Diamore, myself, Ken King, and Catherine Mills. So this is your 2025 council. And then then you all can sit down. And elected to serve 2-year terms on the nominating committee were Judy Bray, who's moving over from the council, Molly Eldridge, and Patty Schwellenbach. And they are continuing on the nominating committee are Irene Feller, Ann Holt, and Jack Studebaker. So thank you all for being willing to serve. And I'd like to express my appreciation as well to the residents who were willing to run for the council, the nominating committee, but were not elected. You're ostracized. You're on this side. They're on the other. Okay, whenever we have elections, we inevitably lose some valuable volunteers who've contributed to make White Sands the community that we cherish. So I would like to extend my appreciation to Judy Bray, who is retiring from the council after 4 years. Judy has been a diligent, thoughtful, plain-spoken, and entertaining colleague as a coordinator for the Holidays Cluster and are linked to the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And I'm delighted she'll continue to serve White Sands on our nominating committee, because it's important that we do have people in the nominating committee who have served and understand the role of the council. And to those who are stepping down from the nominating committee, Ann Spackman, Carolyn Colwell, and Lois Ream, it's been a pleasure working with each of you. Just a word about the nominating committee. It's responsible for creating the 2 slates for our elections, and they did an excellent job this year. Was that a comment? I do hope that when our nominating committee members begin their work this summer, they will find residents who are willing and eager to serve on both slates. Either job gives you a good look at the inner workings of White Sands and should be considered a privilege and not a burden. We had a few committee chairs retire this year. Karen McCracken is stepping down as Circle of Friends. Kathy Deno stepping down from New Year's Eve, which she has chaired 2 very successful events. And Patty Friedlander stepped down from the library after 2 years. Frank Morrell stepped down after co-chair of Reader's Theater for 4 years. Ann and Dick Spackman were co-chair of the Ping Pong for 6 years. And Richard Stoller served 6 years as the founder and co-chair of Averts Committee. And a special thank you to Lois Ream and Michelle Berry, who have co-chaired team member appreciation for the past 3 years, each year exceeding our goal. And you'll hear what they did this year. Marianne Cox, who for 7 years has diligently and daily, and I mean daily, maintained our health relocation and memorial notification board. And that's the one place on the bulletin board that everybody looks at if they pay no attention to anything else. And then, of course, we have our revered editor of the Sandpiper, who stepped down after 19 plus years, and we celebrated her last month, Barb Weiler. White Sands is a special place because of the dedicated volunteers that we have. Many thanks to all of them. Let's give them a hand. And we're fortunate we still have over 40 residents in leadership positions overseeing various committees. Now, at the council meeting this morning, the following residents were elected to serve as officers for the current year. Myself as president, Ken King as vice president, Christia Moore as treasurer, and Louise Peelan as our invaluable secretary. And with the exception of the president and the vice president, all of our council members serve as cluster coordinators. A cluster coordinator oversees a range of from 4 to 9 committees that are grouped in some kind of common relationship. As we did in 2023, we will be reintroducing these clusters at Get It Straight throughout the year. But these are the members who will serve as and they're cluster coordinators. Mike Foley for business, Eduardo Feller for communications, Ann Culinary for edutainment, Michelle Berry for games, Chris Diamore for helping hands, Martin Dalgleish for holidays, Catherine Mills for interests, and as vice president, Ken gets special assignments. And this is the cluster that Eduardo Feller had managed. And I'd like to acknowledge and thank him for so ably serving as vice president for the past 2 years. He agreed to step back so that Ken could take on that role and serve on the executive team this year. So thank you very much, Eduardo. While we don't have any business for the association to attend to before we adjourn the annual meeting and move to Get It Straight, I just wanted to remind residents that there is a section in the library where you can find copies of the White Sands Association bylaws, our resident council manual with standing rules, committee descriptions, and job descriptions for officers and council members, as well as a history of the council and bound copies of the council minutes. They are in a separate bookcase near the elevators. And you'll also find there are 2 volumes on our committees. These were done by Carolyn Shadle, the first one in 2010 and the second update in 2018-19. Not every committee is covered, and we've added some new committees since then, but it gives you an idea of the variety of interests of the residents and the enthusiasm. In the next few weeks, you will be getting an updated copy of our officers and committees brochure, which lists all the officers, clusters, committees, committee chairs, and committee members. And you will also be getting an update of the recurring events list at White Sands and Zoom links. We started these during COVID when we had very little going on, but especially in person. But we are now back to 3 full pages of recurring events at White Sands. So you can't say that there's nothing to do here. I'd also remind you that in addition to Get It Straight, which is normally on the 3rd Thursday afternoon of the month, we have 2 other regular meetings. On the 2nd Thursday, we have Chat with the Council at 10 o'clock. And this is a time set aside for any resident to come. You can have an idea for a new committee. You can have a complaint. You can just bring a question. And the council's there to listen to you, to answer your questions. We won't make any decisions, but we will take, we'll take what we hear back to our council meeting and decide if there's anything that any action the council needs to take. These last as long as 90 minutes and they last as short. They're as short as 5 minutes. Just depends on how many people come. On the 3rd Thursday at 9 o'clock, we have our regular council business meeting. And this includes cluster and committee reports, a report from our executive director, and other business items. And the agenda is always posted on the bulletin board. So all residents are invited to attend both meetings. And right now they're being held in the Jack Patton Community Room. So with that, I will adjourn the annual meeting and move on to Get It Straight. And this is our first Get It Straight of 2025. Next month, we'll go back to the third Thursday. And we always start with new residents. This couple actually hasn't moved in yet. Steve Wilson and Barbara Mulligan. But like some others, they have taken a studio and are waiting to move in until their ideal apartment becomes available. Interestingly, both of them had their parents who lived here. So that may have influenced their decision to come to White Sands. But they live in La Jolla and they are planning to come and participate in some activities here and enjoy the ocean view from our patio. So I thought it would be good if you saw their faces. So if you do see them, please make them feel welcome. Another favorite of mine for the Get It Straight is milestones. And we have 5 to celebrate this month. Lydia Martinez marked 5 years as a housekeeper on January 10th. Ana Valdeolivar marked 5 years in dining services on January 13th. That same day, Diana Yanez marked 5 years as a home care aide. And just yesterday, Venus Joe, our newly minted health services administrator, marked 5 years at White Sands. And this month's longevity prize goes to Adriana Valdez Torres. She's the morning lead in the dining room, and she will mark 25 years at White Sands in dining services on January 27th. So when you see them, please thank them for their dedication to White Sands and its residents. We did some business this morning at our council meeting besides electing our new officers. Catherine Mills has agreed to chair the Downey Artist Series for 1 more year, and Kathy Deno is her vice chair. But then Kathy would like to find a replacement beginning in 2026. For those of you who are new, the Downey Artist Series presents about 8 concerts a year. Is that right? Roughly? Oh, Catherine's not here. And they also secure the musical entertainment for special events like our Downey New Resident Welcome event. They are very well endowed. So money for artists is not a problem, but they do involve selecting the artist and contracting. So if you'd like to know more about what's involved in being the chair of that committee, please contact Catherine Mills. And then Michelle Berry has been appointed chair of the Health Relocation and Memorial Notification Committee, much to Marion Cox's delight. And this is a vital job because it demonstrates that we are a caring community. And if someone goes off to the hospital or rehab, we just like to know what happens to our neighbors. So most communities, according to Shelley, don't even have one of these. But I think it's a very important part of the community, and I'm very grateful to Michelle for agreeing to do that. Now, I would ask Michelle and Lois. I didn't see Lois. Okay, Michelle will come up and give the final report for their swan song of team member appreciation. Hold your breath.
Thank you. Well, the last time I was here, we were talking about how you could give a donation or a gift, and that we were hoping that each person would donate something, and looked at about $1,000 for the year per person. And we have excellent news. All of the sales are green. Through your generosity, we collected 200,027. I'm sorry, wrong side. We had a late donor who was very generous, pardon me, $242,819, which gives us 94% of the residents of White Sands making a donation to the team members. And we are thrilled. Thank you very much for your generosity.
That is a new record for team member appreciation. And I'd like to thank all of the residents and the family members who contributed to the campaign. A huge thank you to Michelle and Lois for chairing this. And we will have an ice cream social on Thursday, February 13th at 2:30 here in the Ocean View Lounge. Our department directors will be serving up ice cream sundaes. And the team members will be here, and we hope you will join us and thank them in person for all that they've done for us this past year. It's a great event. 2:30 on Thursday, February 13th. There'll be something in your mailboxes, and there'll be something in the Sandpiper. Now, we also had a campaign last year, a low-key benevolence campaign. Just a letter to residents. And we set modest goals, but of course we always hope to top our goals. And as most of you know, benevolence is the fund to ensure that no residents at White Sands will have to leave through no fault of their own if they run out of funds. And we can't be blamed if community living extends our lives, but it doesn't necessarily extend our resources. So Buzz Gittleson, who has chaired this campaign the last 4 years, is joining us today from Palm Desert with a year-end report. Buzz, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me? I'm here. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Well, just a couple of points to add to what Anita has said. As many of you who've been here for a while know, this is an entirely anonymous campaign in the sense that nobody knows who of our residents, and sometimes our residents, people of support from outside, give, nor do they know who receives benevolence. But it's inherent part of our culture here at White Sands. And it's not an insignificant cost to do this. And of course, as costs are going up, resident monthly fees are going up. The issue with respect to people being able to stay may make it more difficult. And consequently, the continuance of the benevolence campaign is really important. But let's look first at what's happened this year. This, again, as Anita said, this was an informal informal process. And you'll see from the chart that our beginning balance was 2 million, almost 2,000,007. This year we had 7 so far this year to date, because we're still there's still a possibility that we will receive more funds attributable to 2024. But so far we've raised $75,000 from 76 donors, and that is an increase over the number of donors we've had in past years, which one of the things I've been trying to do this last year, and we hope it'll continue. But it's important every year that we consider supporting the continuation of that fund. And as the slide indicates, we've had 2 additional bequests of over $860,000. So in 2024, so far we have 939,000 that we've added to the fund. Now, if you look at what's happened since November 30, one of the things that doesn't appear here is what the benevolence support has been so far. In other words, White Sands has paid out about $188,000. Now, it gets a good part of that support from the benevolence fund, from the results of the residents' donations. The fund is limited in order to preserve it so that it only distributes between 3.5% and 5%, usually 3.5% of its balance computed over 3 years. So this year, so far, this is through November, so far, the benevolence fund has been able to contribute $92,000, almost $93,000 to that $188,000 cost. And there have been some additional contributions from Human Good itself. So the result is that we have today, as of November, I should say, when the net cost of White Sands was about $71,000 from the fund and from Human Good, the major part of which came from the fund to defray that. The difference is included in resident monthly fees, care fees. And our objective is to build the fund to a number that we believe, based on the percentage distribution from the fund, will cover all of our benevolence costs, and therefore there won't be any need to include that amount in computing the following years or the year's monthly care fees. So that's a very good showing, and it may get better. So let's not go gray. There we go. So let's look at the historical results. And if you go back to 2013 at 275,000, in about 2018, we started this program of not distributing all of the funds from the benevolence fund, but trying to preserve it through this limitation that I've mentioned. And you can see over the years, almost constant growth. It's hard to know why there's a little blip in 21, 22, but basically the trend is clearly upward. Final point, our objective right now is $5 million. We think with $5 million, we have a good shot at being able to cover all of White Sands benevolence costs for the year without any additional charge through resident monthly fees. So we have a ways to go. We've decided, the philanthropy committee decided that after a few years now of really strong performance and an active campaign, that in 2025, we're not going to have a campaign per se, but we certainly want to encourage those who are otherwise inclined to make a contribution to continue to build our fund toward the $5 million. I think we're certainly not the highest in terms of the size of our fund in the Human Good family, but we're doing very well, and we need to keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Buzz. And what Buzz didn't tell you is we still have a $50,000 challenge match that was made last year, but won't be received until 2025. So that's not included in the total. But you'll also notice that 864,000 roughly of what came in this past year was from bequests. And that demonstrates how important legacy gifts are. Indeed, that's how most of our communities ultimately reach their benevolence goals. And the fact that we each year have dozens of current contributors as well just shows how the strong feeling of community that is so prevalent at White Sands and has been since 1956. Now, I would like to turn it over to Isao Martinez, and I don't know if Julie's coming up as well, to talk about going green. Just to move the slides, just
All right,
that button.
perfect. Hello, everyone. How are you today? Happy to be up here. I don't get to be here much, but. All right, so I know a lot of our residents here, myself, were here during COVID. We know how much went to waste with those containers. We passed out to more than 200 rooms a day, many of them with multiple residents living in them. And we know how much we wasted on disposable containers. That's something that we're still using at the time. And this is actually something that we tried to combat in the past by bringing reusable containers. It's a reintroduction to a program that we formerly had. We're starting strong again, and hopefully with the help of our management and the dining team, we'll be able to make it come true. We wanted to introduce the eco takeouts. I have can they see me on the screen over here?
Go for you.
Thank you very much.
I'll be.
Perfect, thank you very much. Okay, so the company that we have created a partnership with is called Eco Takeouts. And Julie up front is showing what they look like. Anybody on screen will try to show them a little bit closer look on the camera, but she's passing them around, and shortly after we'll show it to you. The company does have a really big selection on what's available from their company. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to have every single one of these items. I just wanted to get you familiar with the type of products they sell. We are mostly going to go based off the items that we currently have at the dining room. Can they see the cursor if I move it around? Going back to the
You want to
other
go back?
No, I just want to see if residents on screen get to see the cursor, so
Oh,
I get to point out what they look like. So the idea behind this is residents are going to be able to go. I'll just go back to my plan. So the idea behind of this program is we are trying to reduce the waste that we use by residents carrying out their items, whether they come to the dining room only to carry out for at-home consumption, or any leftovers you want to take home with you, instead of you asking for a plastic container that ideally you would just take it home, eat it on another occasion, and then just dispose of it whenever you're done with it. We're trying to find something a little bit more green positive. We're working with the Green Committee to make this happen. So the idea behind it is we're going to start on February 6th. This is the first Thursday of February. We're going to have a test group of 27 residents. Residents have signed out. Can I see the bag, Julie, the black bag? These 27 residents are going to be provided with a reusable bag and a little green tag. You show them the green tag. And I also want to show it on the screen over here for those who are watching at home. We have a nice little bag, reusable. I know you'll be happy to have those, and not the paper bags that don't have any handles. And we'll be able to identify these 27 residents by the green tag. This is going to be a program that's going to take about 6 weeks. This is just a little test group that we're going to have. We'll get some feedback from the residents in these 6 weeks. So what is to expect is you're going to come at the dining room. You're going to see some residents carrying out on a nice green packaging, and you're probably going to be thinking, how can I get one of those? I know everybody's going to see this and think that's a great idea. I like those. Can I have them? Can I take them home with me? You will be able to. We just want to have a triad of a small rollout of 27 people. Our control group, we're going to see how that happens, how everything goes. We'll get some feedback from these 27 people. And soon after, you'll be able to have those as well. Now, this is how it's going to go. A resident will come into the dining room. They will go through the line. They will show they have their green tag, and they will request a reusable container. They're going to have their food. They're going to take it home. They're going to consume it. And when at home, after they're done with their meal, They'll just rinse out the container. You don't have to wash it. You don't have to use all the soap and resources at home to make it nice and clean, because you'll bring it back on your next visit at the dining room. It doesn't necessarily have to be the same day. It doesn't have to be the day after. As soon as you're back at the dining room, come back with your rinsed out containers. And I have two drop-off locations at the one drop-off location at the dining room. If you were able to see our modified corner at the dining room, you'll see that we don't have that giant table that takes up a lot of room that nobody sits at. So we recreated and remodified it to be a waiting area for you to wait for your pizza, for you to wait for a couple of items from the back of the house. You get to sit down, maybe catch up with a friend. Please refrain from blocking the entrance whenever you see a friend you haven't seen in a while and you want to catch up. Feel free to sit at these spots and keep the line moving. On the right side, you get to see the two containers. They are not trash cans. Please also don't throw trash in there. I'm going to have some sort of signage that I just wanted to introduce this program to you first. You will come back with your rinsed out containers. Again, you don't have to wash them. You don't have to do much to it. You rinse the leftovers, you bring it back, and you drop it off in these containers. Every single service, my team will collect them, take them to the back of the house, and clean them up, sanitize them, having them ready for the next user. You might think, isn't that a little unsanitary? We already share glassware, we already share flatware, we share silverware. This won't be any different. I might be able to answer a couple of questions. I know that questions will arise. I'll be able to answer any simple questions. I won't go too much into the detail about the financial aspect of this. I will let that for Anne when she comes back. But any questions, Miss Rudy? We according to the website, you can reheat food in there in 1 minute bursts. Ideally, we suggest we're just going based off what the website says, but you can reheat food in there.
Preferably not.
Preferably not. That it's always been a common thing when microwaves. When microwaves came into place in our lives, they say not to reheat on plastic. I'm just going based on what the website says. That's where I get the information from. The website says they are reheatable, but preferably you want to take it home, put it on a separate plate, and microwave it as you need it. But I'm just basing what the website says. Yes, Miss. Oh. You want to come up here?
That's okay. According to the website and the research that they've done, this plastic has been formulated without any toxins in it. So you should be able to reheat in it. The issue that we're doing research on, and we've had a speaker on it even, has to do with the microfibers that break loose when you put plastic in a microwave and heat it up. So there's a little bit of danger there. The research isn't very complete on it yet, but you're much better off to take your food out and put it in glass or in some sort of a plate that you usually use, okay?
I believe Buzz Gittleson just requested for us to repeat the questions that. Okay.
Bistro. I frequently get things from the bistro to take home.
The question is, what about the bistro? Again, we're going to have a 6-week of test group, and we're going to do it exclusively at the dining room for both all breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We will try to eventually move to another phase where we get to try out items from the bistro to come in these reusable containers. But at the beginning, we'll just begin focusing on the control group at the dining room for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Mr. Feller?
So I assume that your 27 people are people who are already identified as frequent users of take-home meals.
That's correct. The question of Mr. Feller is if the identified group that we have selected are already identified common users of takeout. That is correct. We did use we created a list of residents who we often see at the dining room picking up their meal to take home. We suggested this list to Ms. Studebaker, who reached out to both common carry-out people and residents that dine in and often have leftovers that they want to take home. So yes, we did start with that test group.
After you running 6-week experiment, are you extending this to assisted living? That brings up some issues.
He's asking after the 6 weeks, we'll extend this use to the assisted living group. We want to focus first on the independent living group, just because you would commonly come down to the dining room quite often. Oftentimes, the assisted living group will have their meals delivered on a tray. So in a way, they already use reusable containers. Most of the assisted living facilities don't have a fridge where they can store their food. So normally they either get a tray service that gets picked up after their meal. So I don't think that we are quite ready to move on to another levels of care. We'll focus on the main dining room first.
I in the dining room at a table and I have leftovers. Rather than going through the line, do I show the tag if I have the tag and have them bring a returnable container to my table?
The question for Mr. King is if he is already dining at the dining room, he has some leftover, and rather than going through the buffet line, he could show his green tag and request for a takeout container from his waiter. That is correct. Yes, that's what you would do for the initial 27 people, and I believe you are included in that, correct, Mr. King? So you would display your green tag, so feel free to carry that with you, whether you have your reusable bag or you simply bring your green card. Or if you forget it, simply let your server know I am part of the control group. We do have a list of those residents who are expected to be part of this test. So you let them know that you want to take some leftovers. We'll provide you with the right box, just for the sake of keeping this as a consistent test. Any more questions here? Yes.
Dinner, is it possible to send our order by email rather than come and wait for it to be prepared?
The question is, if a resident is planning to come down to pick up their dinner, is there a way that they can send in their order by mail? The answer is no. So far, we are expecting residents to go through the line. We don't count with the bodies to ensure takeout orders by request in advance. So we try to work as fast as possible, as efficient as possible for you not to wait too long. Any more questions up here? Luis, could you show me if somebody has questions on? That's it. Okay. Okay. Perfect. We'll have more information with you after these 6 weeks of us trying this out. I'm sure there will be a lot of feedback that we will receive from these 27 people. We're looking forward to making our environment greener. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the dining room management. We'll be happy to answer your questions as the best of our knowledge. Thank you.
I've just heard that the fire is out. People have received a message. So we're off the alert, I guess, for now. Anyway, good news. I'm just trying to think what's next. Oh, he went backwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Announcements. Speaking of things to look forward to besides green boxes, I wanted you to all save the date of Thursday, April 24th. That's when we will celebrate and honor our newest residents, those who've moved in since May of 2024. Many of you who've been here a while have been to Lola Lund dinners. After over four decades, we ran out of funds. But thanks to the incredible generosity of Carolyn Downey, she has established a new endowment, and we will be having our first Downey New Resident Welcome event on April 24th. So mark your calendars, and you will be receiving more information in your mailboxes, and Molly Eldridge is going to be chairing that. So next year, White Sands celebrates its 70th anniversary. And for most of this time, we have been part of Southern California Presbyterian Homes, or SCPH. And then after an affiliation in 2015 with American Baptist Homes of the West, in 2017, we were rebranded as Human Good. And last month, I gave a short presentation on Human Good's Community Support Centers, or CSCs. And essentially, these are what used to be called the corporate offices for our three main affiliates. And they provide services for both our 23 life plan communities and our 100+ affordable housing communities. Everything from HR and insurance to procurement to legal services, things that no one community could possibly afford to have. And I had hoped that would clear up answers to the questions that we get from residents. Why do we need Human Good? Why do we pay a management fee? One thing I didn't mention last month was crisis management. And then the wildfires came to Southern California. I'm sure many of you were glued to the TV. I know we were, as the Eaton fire crept ever closer to my husband's boyhood home in Altadena. And then we got an email with these photos. Before and after. So first COVID, the pandemic, then the Grand Lakes fire. Ooh, that's scary. That's better. For the third time in 5 years, the CSC has had to respond. And it wasn't just the CSC staff, but also the teams from our individual communities that jumped into action. Here are three drivers, George, Troy, and Jamar, drove buses up to Duarte to assist with the evacuation process. That's Shelley's, that's the all call telling us that the fire's out. And we got the local staff was out with brooms and mops and sheets and everything, getting rooms ready for potential evacuees. They even called people who hadn't moved in yet and said, "Can we possibly use your room?" And everybody said yes. So it was very busy. And one thing we did get on a regular basis was updates from Human Good, at least daily, letting us know what was happening to our sister communities. One of which, Royal Oaks, was evacuated, and one of our Westminster Gardens was not evacuated, but they were without power for some time. And one of our affordable housing communities was also evacuated. And in the midst of all of this, we had the Human Good Resident Council had a regular meeting scheduled with John Cochran. And I offered to cancel that, and he insisted that we go ahead because he knew there would be a lot of questions. And I recorded that entire meeting, and I've excerpted a few clips so that hopefully when somebody asks the question, why do we need Human Good? What value is it to us? We will this will help answer that.
Of a corporation that truly cares. I thank you as its leader and thank everyone involved. And our team members here have been absolutely extraordinary, delivering food to our houses. I've eaten more than I've ever eaten and gained tons of weight. But aside from that, I just couldn't get over it, always with a smile. And we've had some real devastation, as you know, on our campus, losing some of our beautiful trees and so on. People have had cars damaged and so on, but we're all safe. No house was really affected. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
She's from Westminster.
And I'd like to stop in and speak in again to thank Westminster Gardens for their warm welcome when we all showed up at the crack of dawn, and some of them had no idea that we were coming. They fed us breakfast and lunch. They kept us busy, and they're welcome. And so that was the first step in our evacuation, and it could not have been a better choice. And we love you all for it.
I have a comment to make. This is Irene Feller from White Sands. I think a lot of people in the individual community do not know the add-on value of human good. For hearing all of you singing all the praises is really wonderful because we have known it like this for a long time. However, outside in the other communities that had not have any emergency or experienced this, had not known this. So I think this needs to be, it's not for the higher ups telling us how good they have done. This is for really the people who are at the receiving end telling us that how great it has been. So I think this need to be taken back to each individual community to let them know, because there are a lot of people who question this. Well, why do we need to about human good? What did they do for us? So here are some of the examples that I don't think a whole lot of them know.
Well, I'd like to say that, you know, that's one of the roles of the Human Good Resident Council,
Absolutely.
is to try and to take back to our communities what human good is as an entity. Not, I know that many of us are only interested in what happens in our own communities. We have people questioning all the time here, why are we paying a management fee to Human Good? Well, you couldn't pay what they just did, what the Community Support Center staff just did for Royal Oaks and Westminster Gardens. And it's on us to go back and say, this is why we are so happy to be part of Human Good. This is the kind of resource that they can bring. This is the kind of caring that they show to their residents, whether they're affordable housing residents or life plan community residents, and to their team members. So it's part of our job as well.
Nita?
I think also too, if the council mentioned, that's great. However, hearing it firsthand from the people who experience it is quite different feeling.
Possible to make a video, a recording, if you will, of people who, by people who have actually gone through this experience and talk about what it was like for them and how the corporation actually swung into action and made things as okay as they could be. I think that would be really a good thing to send out to the various communities.
Linda, you read my mind. I was writing a note to James and Lauren as you spoke, saying, you know, we really need to capture some of this on video. And I think we do for a lot of different reasons. And it's not about being self-aggrandizing. It's about building the culture of this organization, both within the culture of the team, but also the broader culture that between residents and team members. Again, as we talk about the Human Good family a lot. And I think what you saw in action in the past week, both with residents welcoming other residents, with team members springing into action, with the behind the scenes support of the CSCs, you saw the Human Good family in action. And Joanne, I appreciate your words and your note, well protected. But if we get terrific Santa Anas again, that could certainly change, put our communities in jeopardy. We're still on an evacuation watch for a couple of communities, so we're keeping an eye on things, but cross your fingers, say your prayers that things remain calm, winds stay down, and we get these just horrific fires under control. But a huge, huge note of gratitude and appreciation to my team members. I just can't say enough good about them. The goodie bags on the seats, it's just one, that's a great example of what inspires me with our team members. When you're thinking about coordinating transportation, job number one is, can we just get people into seats, and then frankly keep track of where everybody is, which is another one of our responsibilities. But our team on these calls never just stop with the obvious, and I'm just really amazed to hear people talk about the fact that, hey, what can we do to make this special for people? Well, we need a goodie bag. And then you got people volunteering, you know, I'll go to Costco, I'll go to CVS, I'll go over here. And people are running around and coordinating all of this, and it's really heartwarming to see that kind of response. And Anita, I think your comment about the drivers is spot on, that people are looking to be helpful and anxious to step in. And as much as we had obviously all hands on deck helping out in multiple different venues, coordinating efforts all across the country, we had people, you know, raising their hand to let us know they were happy to do anything that would be asked of them to be helpful in a time like this. And, you know, that's the kind of response you can't put into an employee manual, right? That's just not something that you ask of people. That's something that comes naturally from people's hearts and culture. And it really speaks just volumes to the quality of people we have in this organization who want to step up and be part of that in such a significant way. And I think it you know, it also goes back to and speaks to, you know, why these calls are so important to me, why this collaboration between residents and team members is so important. This is when it matters a lot, is you see it in times of crisis and what the real value of that collaboration and relationship is. And it is what separates us from so many other companies and organizations. And so I thank all of you for leaning into this and into community leadership. It matters a lot. And again, I think we've all just seen a good example of why this investment is so important to all of us.
I know that I
So we have accommodations for people. Things you merge in for
We would have go back at Ross.
You know, planning, you know, to take care of people and their families. So yeah, great comment. We will definitely do that.
This is Rick Simon back at Rydell Park. We could only see what was going on television, not experience what so many of you have experienced. And I really would encourage you to do what we talked about before, is somehow make this a historical video or something, just so the rest of us can see what you went through and how marvelously you reacted. I really appreciate being on this call today, but just getting the information for myself is not the same to get it for the 5 communities back east.
And I do want, they did.
I think this is an example of how dedicated our team members are. And I can say if this would have happened in any of our communities, I think the expectation is, or the outcome would be almost the same, because the team members are brought up to have that empathy, to have that attitude towards all of us. So I think this is really very moving.
Irene, that's such a great point, and I will add to that I think one of my impressions is, as I was listening to, observing, you know, watching this team respond, is it didn't surprise me at all. It certainly heartened me, but it didn't surprise me. And I think your comment's exactly right, that if this had been, you know, Philadelphia or Boston or the Bay Area or anywhere else, it would have been the same exact response at the local level and across the entire organization. And I think that maybe probably what heartens me the most is that this really is a reflection of a broader culture among our team members of helpfulness. And yes, this field attracts people who are oriented that way. But you still, you know, they still got to have the vehicle to be able to live that. And I think our team members across the board, you'd see the same response in any community. And that is something that I don't take at all for granted, and I'm deeply appreciative of. And see if you have a comment or question.
I just wanted to say thank you for the ongoing communication from James Park about what was happening. It was very reassuring to know what was going on and to hear that it sounded like everybody had control over the situation as much as possible, and to just ask for continued communication like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I'll say briefly that one of those priorities, and you've seen it here, and we've seen the result in the past week, is to continue building the relationship between residents and team members building that sense of collaboration and common culture and that human good family. And if the last week proves anything, it's how critical, how important that work is, how differentiating that work is. And so I will again express my appreciation to all of you for stepping in and working with us on that. This hand-in-hand relationship is where organizations shine or they don't. And ours does shine, and we need to make sure it continues. Lisa, do you have something you want to add to that?
I wanted to add that we had some residents, Joanne was one of them, who met with us, and then a couple of others who gave us feedback at the hotel about how to successfully transition back to Royal Oaks. We got invaluable information there, and we adjusted our plan according to that feedback and kind of talk through some things. So to John's point, we do it better when we do it together. And so it was just wonderful.
Shown of a.
Okay. Okay, so I want to go back to the slideshow.
Yep.
Okay, I hope you got a little sense of what was going on. The lady, the two people that were speaking at the very beginning, Dorothy Keene is a just past president of Westminster Gardens, and Joanne Walden is the current president of the Resident Council at Royal Oaks. And three of their assisted living and independent living were evacuated. Okay, even as our communities were still on an evacuation watch, team members from across Southern California gathered at Westminster Gardens for a day of service. Battered by strong Santa Ana winds, the community had 3 enormous trees blown down in their park, and lots of debris littered the campus. So 33 team members and one resident volunteer gathered at 9 o'clock for marching orders from Westminster Gardens Director of Buildings and Grounds. We washed windows and furniture, raked up and bundled leaves and other debris around common areas and resident bungalows. We even took down the Christmas decorations, which they obviously hadn't had time to do. It was a lot of fun. We had lunch afterwards and shared stories, and the residents truly appreciated our efforts. And this was the group. Since 2018, I've had the privilege of helping create and lead the Human Good Resident Council, which is modeled on a similar council that was started actually by White Sands residents, including Mary Hegler, back for SCPH back in 1990. And from day one, I have advocated for a greater resident voice. And over the past 3 years, first with our subcommittees within the Human Good Resident Council on communication and sustainability, and then more recently, evolving from discussions with Human Goods leadership team, building resident management partnerships has been embraced. And you heard a lot of that from John. It used to be we were done to, and we said we don't want to be done to, we want to be done with. And now that is being wholeheartedly embraced by the leadership team and even the board of directors. That was a tough nut. In the next few months, we will be expanding resident participation through a dining resident advisory committee that's going to start out by looking at basic standards. RAISE, which stands for Resident Advisory on Innovative Services and Experiences Committee. We're going to have an everyday activity challenge, and then we'll be looking for more resident involvement with the Inclusion Committee. Some of these committees will be looking for representation from each of our life plan communities. Others will just have a few slots, and the activity challenge is going to be open to residents and team members. I will be getting details at our Human Good Resident Council meeting next week. But one thing that we've decided is that the resident council, the local resident councils will be the channel for recruitment and information. So stay tuned. That concludes today's Get It Straight. Please join us again on February 20th. I can't tell you what the agenda is yet. But as a reminder, on your way to dinner, you can, or from dinner, you can watch the latest edition of the All Residents slideshow. And as I always say, if you don't like your picture, send me a new one and I'll put it on. So thank you all, and I hope to see you next month.